when did you start doing music in your house? Were you like little? Did your dad do it? Let's start right from there, and you can just kind of roll with it. And
For
I'll
me
pop in.
personally, for me personally, I started. I mean, I only used to sing as for fun around the streets in my neighborhood,
Okay,
and then I actually did a musical, Joseph and his Technicolor Dreamcoat,
that one.
where I was Joseph. But the
Oh,
funny thing was, I could sing my part, and my school friend who played the Pharaoh
yeah.
couldn't sing the part. So we had like the first mime. I was about 9 years old. So if it'd be year 5 for you, fifth grade for you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he couldn't sing his part. So I had to face him and he had to mouth his lines while I sang his lines.
That's funny. What is your okay? What is your vocal range? I mean, you've got a really nice voice.
Um, it's at least 3.5 octaves. So
All right,
yeah, it's not bad.
it's
I don't
pretty good
really
though.
rate.
No, but there's a texture to it. I mean,
Thank you.
to that you know what I'm talking about too, because I was listening to your some of your albums too,
Yeah.
and
I mean,
I don't get hit myself because of the story. I'm sorry.
no, it's cool. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, so it started him. And then when I met Junior in the summer of 79,
Mhm.
him and Patrick, we used to play football and uh, we used to go to what we called the school in the summer holidays to play football. And he told me about the band and we became really close playing football. And then I went to the first rehearsal for Musical Youth and I actually got banned from the rehearsal very first day, but we remained friends and he encouraged me to keep singing. Junior did. And then,
Was it because they heard you sing? How'd you get banned?
yeah, yeah, he'd heard me sing. He knew I had a little voice, but I wasn't musically trained. I didn't have any
Yeah,
musicality in me. Well, I say musicality. I had the musicality, but
I know you talk
I
about.
wasn't taught. And then I joined, to get that skill up, I joined the orchestra and I played cello. Don't know why.
I've heard it a lot, but a lot of musicians actually they play cello or violin.
Yeah, played cello. And I used to have to walk with this cello 3 miles to get to school. 3 miles. I'm an inner city boy from Birmingham, and the cello was like, huh?
Good
Anyway,
instrument.
so we were listening to reggae music. So that was our love, reggae music. And he told me about his dad, teaching Calvin and Michael to play guitar and drum and bass, guitar and keyboard, and then him and Patrick bass and drum. I
Yeah.
said, wow. Do you think he actually said to me, there might be room for you to be the singer. I said, really? He said, yeah, yeah. He said, come along. So his dad really, really had a go at me. I said, what can you do? And he played, and I was rubbish. I was just rubbish. I didn't know, no musical training. And
Yeah, but you know.
he didn't have much patience. So when he banned me, he was like, okay. So every day I'd go to all through the summer holiday, I'd go to rehearsals, but I'd sit outside and wait for them to finish rehearsals. And then
Patience.
we'd hang out. And it was only until after they'd recorded for the late great John Peel. He was
Oh,
running
he
the
was
radio.
great.
Yeah, John
Yeah,
Peel
yeah,
was
yeah,
the
yeah.
man in the 70s and late 70s, early 80s. John Peel was
Anything that has his name on it is the best.
right, exactly. So you can imagine
Oh,
most of them 80s artists would point to John Peel and say he's the one of the reasons why we got played on the radio
yeah.
because he chose who we played. And all the A&R guys from the record companies were just lazy because all they do is just sit and listen to John Peel.
Yeah, who else?
And it was when the record company Charlie A was leaving A&R Records to go to MCA at the time, which is now Universal, of course.
Mhm.
And he got in touch and said, "Look, I want to hear more." And then when he saw Fred was singing lead, he asked the manager, which is Tony Owens, if they could find somebody more of the age of within the age of the band. So then I got the inside scoop on we're gonna have an audition because we went to the music teacher and said, "Look, can we do an audition for singers?" And he says, "Yeah," but nobody turned up. Only I turned up, obviously inside.
That's
If it
funny.
was if it was to do with shares and share prices, I would have been done for insider dealing.
That's good. That's funny.
so,
What are
so
the ages of you guys? So, when we watch the
so
video, you guys are
at
all
the
different
time,
heights.
right? So I look really tall, don't I?
You do, but puberty hits differently, though. Puberty is
Yeah,
unforgiving and
yeah.
relentless.
And Calvin 11, Michael 13, Patrick 14, Junior 15, and myself 15. And we'd already been playing for 2 years before that. So Calvin started at 8. The guitar was bigger than him.
It
Even
was
though
huge.
sorry.
No, I'm sorry, it is. It was huge on him. I always try
Yeah.
to hear him like he's really seems like he's down in his guitar playing is low in the mix out on a lot of it.
No.
And I think the band overtakes it.
Oh, no. I mean, his guitar, that's reggae for you.
Okay.
That's just reggae for you. It's just the guitar and the keyboard play together. So you have 2 units. You have the guitar and drums, bass and drum. They're the rhythm section, and they're the bass and drum, and then the rhythm section, the guitar and keyboard.
Okay.
But the guitar and keyboard are coming down together. So the left hand, so you kind of don't hear it until he does an inflection.
I hear it. That makes sense now because I'm thinking it's kind of in the mix together. It's not
Yeah.
jumping out more. So, but
Yeah.
that's because that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's not about his playing. It's about like it's just the mix of
It's just the way it is for reggae.
Okay.
It comes down with if you've got piano, it comes down with the piano. So ching, 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 and that's what it sounds like. And because the frequencies are more or less the same, you kind of can miss it. But those reggae aficionados will tell you, no, it's right. It's right. So we go from there to do a showcase at the General Wolf in Coventry. Now, the General Wolf is famous for launching the careers of the Specials, Selector, for two-tone. And
nice.
We went from there to do recordings we actually started, when we signed to MCA, we actually started recording with Fun Boy 3, which was Terry, Linval, and Neville from the Specials were trying to produce the tracks, but it never really worked out. So then we were doing some shows. We were doing live. We were still playing live, and nobody really took any notice. The school never took any notice. And then we went to do the great. Well, we call him the Great Dunlets, but Dunlets was running shows upstairs at Ronnie Scott's in London, which Ronnie Scott's is a famous jazz club. It's still going, and he was putting on events upstairs. So we ended up doing some shows up there with myself and Fred singing lead. And Boy George came. We didn't know him as Boy George. We just saw this guy and thought it was a girl. And he invited us to come and do support with Culture Club, because Culture Club was signed, but Virgin didn't know what to do with them. So we did this support gig with Culture Club. And when we did the support gig, we used to play all the #1 reggae songs of the time, and Pastor Kutchi was the #1 reggae song in 1981. And when we sang Pastor Kutchi,
what is Kutchi? Can you clear up for a lot of us here in America?
Right, let me explain a Kutchi. Kutchi pipe.
Thank you.
What the Kutchi pipe is what the Rastafarians put the weed in them.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So that's what a Kutchi is.
I heard it. Wasn't sure if it was true because you hear all these different versions. I've heard so many. I can't imagine how many versions you've heard of this.
Well,
the first I want to get right from you.
So I heard, and when I heard this, I fell over laughing. When we released Pastor Dutchie, the American audience thought we were singing about cooking. When we said it was a cooking pot, they thought we were actually cooking pot.
Oh, see, well, the kids at the time knew. They were saying it, but I didn't know how true it was because there's no internet. It's about weed. It's about drugs, man. I'm like, it can't be about drugs. It's a huge song.
Sean, come on, Sean. If can you imagine 11 to 15-year-olds singing about drugs?
In the 80s, in the early 80s, that's insane. I was thinking about that the other day. It's like it was just I can't even fathom it.
The logic. Think the logic. I mean, we haven't got to the rap songs yet. Remember, no. We haven't got to banning all the rap songs. So can you imagine we're singing about cooking weed? And cook weed, so you boil it.
Well, people don't. I know, but the parents don't know. There's some of those that are still innocents.
Yeah, I know.
So good though.
I just the double meaning. They call it a double entendre, don't they? Anyway, so the A&R guy said, look, because there was about, it was the biggest gay and lesbian club in London that we played at, and it was it was sold out, 3,000 people there. And when we sang past the Cutchy, I'm getting mixed up, they went absolutely nuts. So he said to us, look, is there any way you could change the lyric of that song? Because the reaction you got was just so good. And when we went to do the demo of the album, we recorded 8 songs. 2 of them were past the Cutchy and past Dutchy. It was literally, we listened to it and went, right. So we went in the control room. What can we change it to? So we said, well, Cutchy, Dutchy, Dutch pot, right. So Dutch pot is what it was. So we went back and sang, how does it feel when you got, instead of singing, how does it feel when you got no herb?
Yeah.
How does it feel when you got no food? So that should have been the first thing they should have noticed, but nobody did. And they just carried it, you know.
So good. It's like the
And
biggest scam ever. Like over there, you know what I
but,
mean? It's like a P.T. Barnum thing.
Sean, it's totally organic.
Oh,
It wasn't something cooked up by the record company, because the record company,
I
if
know.
they would have known, do you think they would have taken that risk? I don't think so.
They still wouldn't. Oh,
No.
that is so good. That is so good, though.
So then, when we released the song here in the UK, we nearly never recorded it, first and foremost, because the first recording we started to do, we wanted to record it at our studio here where we used to rehearse. And the producer at the time was Peter Collins. And Peter Collins went on to produce Yes and some big rock bands. Anyway, he said he was just, for 2 days that we tried to record this song, he had nothing but problems with the studio, this, that. And he went back to the A&R guy and said, I don't think the guys can play. And then we were like, what? So we were angry. And what they had to do was put us with him for 2 days. So we went to London, spent the day with him, talking and playing on the Hyde Park, playing on the lake in Hyde Park on the boats. Yeah. Then we went to record, so everybody's relaxed. He's got his, instead of him saying, look, I don't want to use this studio, he decided, you know, and that's a studio, that's a producer's, you know, way.
Yeah.
And we went in, and he tried to get us to record it. How you hear the single and see the video is not how we recorded the song. Okay. So he tried to get us to record it how you hear it, but we never recorded it that way. We recorded the full, I don't know if you remember 12-inch versions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when you hear the 12-inch of Past the Dutchy, that is how we as the band recorded it, because we weren't experienced enough as musicians to know what he wanted. So he just put the click down. Junior played to the click. So he said, anywhere I splice this, it's going to be in time. So you got to imagine there's a 15-year-old there playing to a click. And then his brother's 14. And then we all play, and we played it straight down. And then when he put it together, he spliced it together. Yeah. He got Wix Wickings in. I don't know if you know, well, if you know Wix Wickings plays with Paul McCartney. He's Paul McCartney's keyboard player. He played the congos and the little riffs. And then went away, spliced it together. I actually watched them splice. If you think about cut and paste now, with cut and paste now, if you make a mistake, you can go back and put it back in. But if you're cutting physical 1/4-inch tape and you make a mistake, you can't go back.
I gotta be honest with you, I went to school for recording in the early 90s, late 80s. I learned how to splice.
You learned how to splice
with a razor blade.
Yeah, that's right. It cuts
razor blade and tape. Oh yeah,
straight across at an angle. That's right, 1/4-inch tape, and you put it down and you roll it back and you cut it. But if you get it wrong,
it is a nightmare. It is a nightmare. I know. It's an art.
Oh yeah. So
there's a special class just for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I stood there and watched Peter Collins. Oh, we had so many Peters. We had Peter Price, head of marketing for MCA. Peter Collins was the producer. Peter Waterman from Stockaken and Waterman, and Pete Hammond. He's a mix master. He did a lot of stuff with PWL in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, and stood there watching him. And then, as they say, the rest is history. So when the record company released the single, we'd gone to one of their retreats, but they have their marketing retreats, and they said to us, well, we don't expect the track to go more than number 80 something. Well, it entered the British charts at number 26, which is a phenomenon in itself. And then it took everybody by surprise, because at number 2 was Zoom by Fat Larry's band. And it went straight to number 1, went from number 26 to number 1, which everybody, I mean, we'd started recording the first album at the time. So we'd been in the studio for a week already. And when we got the call in the morning, little did we know, the record companies already knew. And they told us, we read the paper on the way to the studio, because we were in a taxi and we were saying, look, we're number 7, which isn't bad.
That's really good.
I mean, when we released the single, we decided not to tell anybody in the school because we didn't want to embarrass ourselves. But funny enough, we left the school on the Tuesday, because in this country, they used to release the charts on the Tuesday. Mm-hmm. We left school that Tuesday. Tuesday afternoon, the single had gone to number 26, but we'd already gone. And when it went to number 1, then it was just, the first time we took a flight was that week. Nobody said to us, are you scared of flying? They just put us on this plane and flew us up 500 miles up to Newcastle in the northeast to go and do a TV show.
Come on, you guys are all young boys. You guys are fearless.
Wow.
Number 1 song, 15 years old. The world, man. We
weren't coached into doing interviews. They never coached us. They just put us in front of a camera and said, talk, answer the questions. I don't know how to be fair, we all took it in our stride, because it wasn't something that we'd planned for. We hadn't planned to have a number 1. We didn't say we want to have a number 1. We just wanted to do the best we could do for ourselves. As a band, we wanted to be the best band in the world. And at one point, we were for a few years there, because there was nobody that was equal to us or parallel to us. So yeah,
it's insane. So now you got signed to do like an album, like a album deal, or like a full album, or like we say record, like 12-inch. Is it 8 songs?
Well, no,
the sets of the day.
We signed. I mean, we couldn't sign our contracts because we were minors. So our parents had to sign our contracts. The lawyers had to look at it, but our parents had to sign or countersign, because we were too young to sign these contracts. And
anybody have to con their parents into it? Be like, come on. They're like, I don't know. I don't want you doing this.
No, not at all. Good. I mean, it wasn't a case of we don't want the boys to do it. As I said, the school knew nothing about what was going on until the band suddenly went to number 1 and all hell broke loose. And they've got all press coming down to the school, and they're trying to work out what do we do, because it was unprecedented. Like I say, Sean, it was totally organic, and that's the beauty of it. You'll never see the like of it again, because nobody expected it.
Just lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, and you're then on the back foot trying to deal with it, and the beauty is that even when we were released by MCA 2.5 years later.
How many albums?
We'd done 2 albums. Okay. Because that was the time when you had to do an album a year. It wasn't a case of wait 3 years and then you can do the next one. Because everybody knows this, anybody in the industry will tell you, the first album you release is a life's work. Everything after that is from the back of that. So 12 months on, we've got an American label that's got a successful artist, worldwide artist, that they don't know how to market. So they've got the artist, which will sell, but you got to put a couple of factors in here. They're all minors. We could only work 42 days a year legally. Plus, it was worldwide success. So Japan, Australia, Europe, Africa, West Caribbean, East Coast, West Coast. And if you remember at the time, you might have a hit on the East Coast, but you might not be successful on the West Coast. Case in point, example, Luther Vandross was successful on the East Coast, but took him a long time to to get up on the West Coast, which we didn't know. We're totally oblivious to this because now the other factor we've got to throw in there is the genre of music. It's not soul, it's not pop, it's reggae. So now you've lost the biggest selling artist, which is Bob Marley. And we're no Bob Marley because we're not from the Caribbean, but we're playing reggae music. And for us to be played on, first and foremost, be played on MTV in the early 80s as a black artist was the big thing, but we didn't know nothing about it. We're totally oblivious to this. So this is where I find out from Peter Waterman, it was Tom Petty who approached MCA and MTV and said, look, you gotta see these guys, and they're good. And
that's the best.
Yeah, I know. I only found that out 2 years ago myself. So when I heard that, I was like, wow, okay. So another artist is pulling in your favor.
Yeah, who knows how many other things he's done like that to people? You know what I mean? Just
well, to be fair, I do see with a lot with American artists more than the UK artists. For as an example, again, I mean, who knew that David Bowie would launch the career of Luther Vandross? I never knew that. I never knew that. So you look at it and go, wow, okay.
I think because the American rock industry, the American rock industry bands are more helpful.
Yes.
Like classic Rocky. I'm not gonna say like all the genres are very good, but there is in the rock industry a very openness to everybody. There's no, there's the racism, the religion. It's just,
Let's put it this way, Sean. In America, you think about it, in the 80s, they see, or even now, they see a musician as a career. In this country, it's not the same. For me, in the 80s, it was like, okay, so you play music. What else do you do? What else do you do? And you're like, okay, like it's not all consuming anyway. It's the arts. So people don't see it that way. It's not what you're doing now. It's how you portray it. Anyway, so when we went to Jamaica to film two videos and a documentary. And we flew to New York and went on MTV. Little did we know that MTV didn't have black artists coming in to do interviews. We didn't know this. So we ended up finding out that we were the first black artists to do an interview on MTV. So not only that we did MTV, we then did Saturday Night Live with Joan Rivers. And when we did Saturday Night Live, it was Joan Rivers, Eddie Murphy, and Buckwheat. We didn't get to meet. So, but Joan was absolutely beautiful, wonderful to us. We didn't have any problems because it takes you off guard, doesn't it? You see these young kids and you're thinking, how can you be nasty to kids? You can't be rude to kids. Yeah. So
you guys look like a lot of fun though.
Yeah. Oh man, we always had fun. I mean, we went from Jamaica to New York. It was like 30, 35, 40 degrees to -8. My gosh, that was our first trip to New York, but it was a blast. That's why New York became my favorite city in the world.
So when you get your 2 albums out, what was it like afterwards with those label really kind of pushing you still?
Say that again.
You can only work like 42 hours, like 42 days a month, 42 days a year. Yeah. You couldn't have done that to promote an album.
Well, that was to do recordings, TV shows, touring, everything. We actually considered moving to America because your system was, as long as you got a private tutor and you're schooling for 3 hours a day, you can go on and do that. And we actually I know we considered it, but this is where one of the parents said, no, this ain't gonna happen, but yeah, that kind of didn't help the band at all. It was more of a negative than a positive, as you just said. You try doing an album or doing all the work you can do or doing all these interviews that you want to do in 42 days. It's not going to happen.
One of them nowadays.
It's not going to happen. And we actually ended up recording the second album. In fact, before we got to the second album, we got nominated for a Grammy Award as Best Newcomers. Now, as I said, the factors are, it's not pop, it's reggae. America hadn't really embraced reggae. Even to now, they understand, they've got an idea of reggae, but they still don't. It's not mainstream. You know, it's like something that's distant to them. So you could get the best musicians in the world, but ask them to play reggae music. Some of them will struggle. They can play a form of reggae, but it's not reggae. And we get nominated for Best Newcomer in a Grammy. There's no reggae section. And it was from that the Grammys looked at all the genres. If you're the Oscars of reggae, if you're the biggest music, what's it called? Old age. What am the words I'm looking for? You're celebrating music and artists, yeah, like the American Music Awards. Right. You're celebrating artists from around the world. It should encompass everything because you are the Grammys, yeah. Right. And it wasn't until after we'd been nominated that they put a reggae section in. We could have won it, but we weren't around to do it. Just to be nominated, and the day we went to the Grammys that year, Michael Jackson picked up the 8 Grammys for Thriller. So, okay, we were there on a historical occasion. We were with Irving Azoff was with us, and Irving is something else. I mean, he's a legend already with the
oh yeah,
you know, Irving. We had Irving, and Irving was running with Don King at the time, so we were all sat on the same row. And Don had just signed the Jacksons to the Victory Tour. And all the American music promoters were up in arms because this boxing promoter's got the Jacksons on a music tour. But I reckon it was Irving Azoff that sorted that out. It couldn't have been him. Couldn't have been him at all. It would have been Irving Azoff that would have been a consultant on that one. You know, so
Don was probably more than just a mouthpiece. He was a rebel rouser.
No, I mean, I've seen the documentaries of, the Eagles and how Irving was and how they are and, the stuff they did. So I get it. So we go on to record the second album, and we were living in Beverly Hills. I mean, it's not like we could have big parties because we were too young. We couldn't go out to any clubs. We couldn't go out clubbing, go out drinking or nothing. Couldn't do none of that. We had to make our own fun. And if you think back then, we didn't have anything. We didn't have these. We didn't have phones. We barely, I don't even think the Atari was there. So we had to, all we did was practice, which made us better. And we ended up doing Montreal Jazz Festival headlining, Reggae Sunsplash in Jamaica headlining, and
nice.
some shows out in Japan and doing some live gigs in Thailand and in Bangkok at the time. If you think in the 80s, Western bands hardly went to Thailand. So it was, how can I say, from the moment the band took off and the success, we didn't realize we were actually knocking and breaking down barriers.
Yeah, everything. You just cut your own path the whole way through.
Yeah, I get to, when I travel and do gigs now, and last year I did some shows in America on the West Coast there. People were coming to me and saying, "Nah, you really changed how we saw your reggae music." And I actually lived in Los Angeles. When I left the band, I was in Ireland for 6 months touring, learning my craft. And then I ended up out in LA recording my solo album. 2 of the songs were recorded and produced by Stevie Wonder. So that's when I ended up signing to Island Records with Mr. Blackwell himself.
How'd you end up with Stevie, that connection?
Well, the Stevie connection came when we was recording the second album. We went down to JALH, which is Stevie's radio station. And one of the ladies down there said, "How'd you like to meet Stevie?" And we're like, "Of course we want to meet Stevie. Who wouldn't want to meet Stevie?" She said, "Right, no problem." Anyway, so we're all up in our hotel. No, it isn't a hotel. We were up in the mansion in Beverly Hills. And we get this call at 3:00 in the morning. "Stevie's at the studio now. You can come down." So we had to get up and drive down to the studio. And funny enough, the guy who took us, Tops Henderson, it's his birthday today, but he drove us down there, and we were all there with Stevie, and he was saying he's got this air hockey table, and he said to me, "If you beat me at air hockey, I'll write you." I'm like, okay, so this man's blind. I'm gonna beat him.
Oh.
So we playing, and if Steve beats me, and I'm like, oh my days, he's beating me, and he's blind. And he says, "I've written a song for you anyway." And the song we recorded was called "What You Talking About." Funny enough, we didn't have the time for him to sing and produce it, but we recorded "What You're Talking About" for the second album.
It's a good song.
It's a great song. It is a good song. It's a real good song, to be fair.
It stands out totally because you put that in your solo album.
And yes, I did.
Out.
I went back.
Totally different than the rest of your songs on the album.
Yes, well, it's a Stevie production, you know. And
but
also,
even the music sounds it sounds much more reggae. The other stuff sounds more like it's 80s.
Yes, it does.
We're controlling you. It wasn't. I don't know.
It does.
It doesn't have that flow that you had.
Yeah, I mean, funny you say that because I listened to that album, my solo album. It's a bit, it's a bit of a mix and match. The voice is okay. It's a bit of a mix.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. Like vocally, it sounds good.
Somebody trying to. It sounds like somebody trying to find their way. There's not. It needed guidance. That's what it needed. If I'm looking at it from total pure understanding the industry as I do, that needed some. You just need to be guided. And I felt.
I thought you had it. You with Stevie. If you kept that was the sound right there.
Yeah, he did 2 songs. So, and then he was on the video as well. So that was another thing, getting Stevie on the video, because Stevie never really doesn't go in people's videos unless it's Dionne Warwick. I think that year he did a song with Julio Iglesias, and he never appeared in the video for that. So yeah, so we went down there, and that was where my relationship with Stevie started, and we stayed friends ever since. And then Nathan Watts, who's his bass player, we're still good friends. And it was like he just embraced us, just like Michael did. Michael Jackson embraced us. All the American artists. Yeah, we spent the day with Michael in Encino doing the second act. We actually took a day out from recording and upset the producer. We got the call that Michael, when Michael came over with Paul McCartney, it was at the what they call the Brit Awards. Now was called the BPI Awards, which was the biggest. It's the English equivalent of the Grammys or the American Music Awards. Anyway, he came over and he met Michael, our Michael, keyboard player, and said, "When you're in the States, give me a call." So we get there, and Michael's calling him, and he gets an answer service. Now, answer service to me was an answer machine, but it wasn't. Then it wasn't. You had people actually on the other end of the line, and they'd be taking the calls, and they'd send the message to Michael. So we're up in the mansion, and we get this call, and they're going, "Hold the line, Michael Jackson's on the line for you." And he says, we get on the phone, and Michael's all excited. "Wow, how you doing? Blah blah blah." And he's up. So then he says, "Dennis is here. Do you want to speak to him?" And then I'm like, "Really?" So I get on the phone. I go, "Hi, Mike. How you doing?" And he goes, "Hi." I'm like, "Oh my gosh." "How you doing?" I was like, "What?" Anyway, so we set up. He said, "Look, come over to the house, spend the day, chill out." So we said, "Yeah, no problem." So we set it up, and we all. You can imagine the scene now, Sean. There's us 5 who are just 5. There's teenagers and one younger one, and we're boisterous because we're like, wow, we're jumping up and down and whatever. We never keep still. Anyway, we get to the house in Encino. Before we'd even met Michael, we'd already met Jermaine in a TV show in England. So Jermaine was cool, but we get to the gates in Encino, and we drive up this long drive. I'm an inner city boy. This is like something out of this world. And we get to the house, and we're sitting there, and it's nobody ain't talking. It's quiet. Then Michael comes down, and we stand up and meet him, and we're like, "Wow, he's taller than we thought." He's taller than we thought. And then Janet came, LaToya came,
Wow.
And then he introduces himself, and then he introduces two of his neighbors with Rover. So he says, right, I'm going to take you all around the house. So he took us all around the house, every room in the house. He took us around every room, even the guest room. He said, nobody stays here, but we keep it here anyway. Then he says, takes us across the road to the studio. He says, I have to keep the studio across the road from the house, so I feel like I'm going to work. Then he takes us in his dance studio, takes us in his bedroom, and we're all like, wow, there's not a room that he doesn't say, don't go in there, right? Even Janet's room, we went in, Latoya's room.
Really?
Then Latoya turns up, Janet, they came, then Marlon, Tito, Randy, Jermaine, Jackie, they all turn up with their kids. So we're like, wow. I ended up, he took us and showed us all the animals, and he's got a talking parrot that only talks to him and women. So the parrot wouldn't talk to anybody. He said, wow, help, anytime.
So that was like 84, right? 84,
That was 83.
Oh, wow.
He's
Was it
83.
Neverland Ranch? So it was Neverland Ranch?
No, Neverland, no. It was
Or
Encino.
prior? Encino?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this, I'm just going to set you up. I'm setting you up now.
Okay.
So he's got the monkey. He's got, it wasn't Bubbles, it was Michael the monkey for the day. Then I got Muscles the snake on my shoulder. We was in his bedroom, and he says, look, I've just done a special for Motown 25. He said, this is what I've done. So he's put this video on, and he's shown us the video. This is the video that made Thriller explode. Billie Jean just went nuts after this. And me and Michael were sat there, we like with our mouths open up. I thought, can't believe it. And he's, yeah, I just done this. And we said, so what are you going to do now? He says, I'm going to do one more video for Thriller. He said, I like horror movies, so I'm going to do Thriller based on a horror movie, the video. And that's all he said. But man, then that afternoon, Jane Fonda came over and hung out with us. So I was like, wow, you can't get carried away. You just got to take it in your stride.
That is Motley Crue with people.
Yeah, we actually ended up recording a song with Latoya. So we did Unconditional Love with Donna Summer. Mm-hmm. Brought her career back. And then we did, I forgot, Nobody Try to Hide, From What You Feel Inside. It was Howard Hewitt, Latoya Jackson, and us. But the record company wouldn't allow her to put our name on it. So she just put it on her album. And yeah. So whilst we were there, we did some live shows with Donna Summer as well. 6 live, yeah.
You did a lot in that short time period. You did a whole lifetime in like a couple weeks.
We did a lot. I mean, it was, as I say, it was organic. We didn't get carried away with it, because even going to the Grammys, which was a big thing, it's a bit, I mean, you get to the Grammys, I mean, now people recognize it because of how the internet has made it more, the musical globe tighter and smaller. The internet has made it smaller. Back then, we didn't have internet. We didn't have mobile phones. You were going by satellite. We didn't have like what we're talking now.
I know, it's crazy.
It's just, so at the end of the day, what the groundbreaking, what we did was, unbeknownst to us, we're breaking down barriers. Mm-hmm. So I only get to understand it now as an adult, what was achieved. And I'm sure it's no mean feat. And I keep using this word, organic. And the reason why it's organic, we're still talking 38 years after the song was released.
I think everything that's organic and natural always has the best chance of success.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's no, as I say, there was no, how can I say? We played our instruments. If you go and watch any of the live shows that we did, or even Saturday Night Live, if you can get hold of it, think about it. Saturday Night Live. I mean, it's just like, wow. People go, you were on Saturday Night Live? Yep, we were on Saturday Night Live. And Gene Simmons came backstage to see us. But we weren't interested in Gene. We were interested in the Atari game that we had.
He probably saw you guys as a good record label sign. He was always scouting out music.
Was he?
Oh, yeah.
Well, he probably...
Van Halen, everyone else. He was scouting. He was always scouting.
Yeah, but we were signed to one of the biggest. So, because at the time, MCA was one of the big 6.
Yeah.
You know, CBS, RCA, Atlantic. Who else was there? There's somebody else in there because Ireland wasn't even big then. It's gonna come to me. CBS, RCA,
Mercury,
MCA,
okay.
Warner Brothers.
Okay.
Warner Brothers. So, you know, I mean, that's just US. The rest of the world, you know, Holland, France, they loved us. The French, if you know anything about the French prefer you to be singing in French.
I didn't know that.
We sold as many records in France as we did in the UK. So we got gold status album, you know. Holland,
Yeah.
you can imagine Holland. We did a TV show, we were miming, and there was a load of kids at this TV show. And when we finished performing, the kids actually said they wanted more. They were filming a TV show. And the kids, we want more. So yeah, so you know, when we performed in France, we had to perform with a backing track. I had to sing live.
Mm-hmm.
So I was singing over the backing track live because that's how the French Musicians Union wanted it. But yeah, we did break down some back. We even went out to Israel. A lot of people don't realize we went to Israel to do some shows. And yeah, I mean, at the time, you think Israel was ostracized. If you went to Israel, you couldn't get into certain countries. And they wouldn't stamp the passport. But yeah, we did some shows and live shows in Tel Aviv, Haifa, and Jerusalem.
Where's your book, man? This should be in a book.
Yeah, I know. Listen, I'm actually, when I talk to you, Sean, and I'm actually doing my research. I'm just trying to work out how I'm going to chronologically put it together. I don't know if I should just do the stories and then piece it together. That's what I'm working on, because there's a 40th anniversary coming up in a couple of years and I got to get it together. Otherwise, before my memory goes. But every time I talk to people, I start remembering things. So I got to work out.
Yeah, it's magical, man.
I'm going to get it down. I mean, there's even a play. We had a play done by a local theatre.
Really?
Yeah. I've got the script to the play. So, you know, I might just...
Yeah, you didn't. These are the things we don't know. I mean, even, you know, it's not a lot out there.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw the play and see this guy as you and putting up your mannerisms, you get kind of insular. And I'm pretty... I hope to think I like to think I'm down to earth. I get very humbled in terms of you don't realize your goal as a band. Our goal was a band. If you remember, Sean, I said we never set out to have a #1 single. That wasn't our goal. It wasn't even in our thought process. All we wanted to do was release songs and record songs, do live shows that they would play on a sound system. Yeah, and we could just go perform.
You still do it now, so it worked out, man.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, as I say, I'm blessed. I had to take a short. I mean, I left the band for a short time. I lost the love of the band. I fell out of love, not because of it was outside sources. If you look at it, 11 to 15, you're growing up in that age. You look back at your friends that you went to school with at that age, and how many do you really know? You know, and if you go back to what I said to you, in this country, they didn't see us. I mean, as successful as we were. It just felt like it wasn't a success, if you know what I'm saying. Looking from the outside, you go, man, are you crazy? Look what you've got. Look what you've done. Yeah. Look how you... And we, the word exploitation, we never exploited it because the manager we had didn't understand the business, and he had people around him that have gone on to do major things in the industry, but he decided that he knew better. And little did we know what he was actually doing was, and everybody gets done, we were getting ripped off. And that's no new news in any short form. That's not new news. Think about, even if I take you now to the 21st century, Taylor Swift, successful artist, her first label, what they're doing to her. What I have discovered, and this was the good thing for the band, our parents didn't manage us. So they were our parents, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You cannot manage your own child. And there's history.
I can't manage mine.
Right. Like you play an instrument. It's no point you trying to teach your child the instrument unless the child wants to learn. You got to give them to somebody else because they'll question you. Why do I have to do it? Why do I have to do it? Yeah. Now, the history has shown there's no good thing comes from a parent managing a child. And when I say no good thing, it be for the artists, they cannot get away from that what they need a break from. So if the parent manages them, is that my business manager or my father? Through all the people, I'm looking at Beyonce. It doesn't even have to be music. I have to look at Lewis Hamilton in Formula One and his daddy. He needed to get his dad back. That's what he said. I need my dad back. Really? Beyonce, Michael Jackson, you can name them. I can take you through them. Who's going through it now? Britney Spears. Yeah. And that's only because she had a breakdown and she needed a break. Yeah. If somebody would have said to me, look, take a break, come back, we'll get it together. No problem. Nobody was there to advise that. My mom didn't know. My mom's a single parent. She don't know the industry. She's just going to go with what I want. So thank goodness for me, it was less stress for her. She never, ever questioned my decision, even as young as I was. She never questioned. All she said was, as long as you're happy, it ain't no problem for me.
See, it's better you bowed out because it was a bad industry. I mean, when I was in college, they actually, in our class, they talked about how bad the payroll was at the record labels. And when you go into the radio stations, they would bring a suitcase of cash or Coke to push a single.
Yeah.
A lot of times it wasn't like, it was crooked the whole way through. Everybody was getting screwed except for the record labels.
Yes, exactly. But you know what? This is the music industry, and exploitation is in the contract. We are going to exploit you, and exploit you we will. And there's nobody in the music industry that's never been ripped off. And those who say they haven't, they don't know it yet. They don't know it. So, it's when you're trying to achieve, I mean, it all depends on your mindset. If you are looking for success and start, I always tell anybody, a parent would come to me and say, well, how do I make my son successful? I just tell them hard work. And it's not about now. People want, if you want now, we want it now. You think of all those shows, TV. I mean, here in this country, you got American Idol, but American Idol is more successful than the X Factor here because the American music industry accepts that is a talent and we need to exploit it. And American Idol is their vehicle and they take it seriously. So you've got artists who have gone on and won Grammys, Oscars from American Idol.
Yeah.
It's not the same in this country. I don't know why, but their attitude is, it's not real. It's too quick.
It isn't real though, but it isn't real.
But
it works for people. It works. I mean, there's a lot of good artists that come out of it, but overall the show is kind of a goof.
Well, I always taught, you see, like my daughter plays music and she's studying music at university. And I said to her, look, if you want a career, you don't go on these reality TV shows. That is not a career. That does not make you a musician.
Be a musician, not a celebrity.
You need to start from there and you need to grow it. So whether your level is, I'm going to play in the local pub once a week, or I'm going to build myself up so I get to play at major stadiums, doesn't matter. The reason why I'm still performing today is because I know what it is to go from rehearsing 7 days a week, having a successful single, having a successful album, touring the world. And I never really toured the world because I never did Australia. I never did Germany, never played. And these are places I want to play live. And that's only because we can only do 42 days a year.
Yeah.
You will then see where people think, well, you can't be any good because you're not on TV. It's not about being on TV. It's about being where you're at and are you happy with what you want to do. I can sit here as an artist of what am I started at 14, so I'm coming up to my 40th year in performing. And when I go and do these 80s shows with other artists from the 80s, I am still the youngest artist. That's the
That's
thing.
really funny because yeah,
It's really funny. I actually
50,
stand there, literally, Sean, I stand there and watch them, and they start talking about when we used to go clubbing, and I look at them and go, I couldn't go clubbing. Are you mad?
Yeah, I'm 50 now, so like you were like right in your age range for me seeing somebody
Right.
my age
So
playing music on TV.
you would have been 11. Calvin was your age. Calvin's
Yeah.
your age.
It was
Yeah.
amazing to see kids playing on TV, on MTV,
Yeah.
playing instruments. I thought it was the
And
best.
you know what, Sean? You say that. Our actual goal was we want to encourage other kids to play music. That was our goal. We
Yeah.
want to encourage other kids to play music. So you're just confirming what our goal was, and we never lost that. Just encourage other, just seeing us, if it seeing us encourages other kids to play, even better. So when people come to me and say, you encourage me to get up and play music, I learned English from you, I learned this, I'm like, wow, it's just overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah.
It is overwhelming because you remember, we didn't have this medium, we didn't have this, we didn't have the internet. All we had was letters and phone calls. That was it, and radio stations. We didn't have that, you know. And the amount of radio stations in this country compared to America, well, we only had really one station that controlled who had hits, and that was Radio 1. You weren't played on Radio 1, you weren't on their playlist, you were struggling. If you didn't get on Top of the Pops, which Top of the Pops was the biggest music show in this country for 40 years at least.
Yeah.
If your single went down after Top of the Pops, that was it. But we never got onto Top of the Pops until the Christmas of '82 because of the education board. So they had to play the video. So yeah, so it was, how can I say? You grow up fast. It's like growing up on TV, isn't it?
Yeah. Well,
But
I mean, but you didn't have the behind the music crash. I mean, you had life stuff happen, but it wasn't like, you know.
oh, no, listen, that's because we didn't live in London, so we weren't in that London bubble. So for you guys in America, what you've got, and you get to understand this, what you've got is the hubs. So you got New York, yeah. So in the '80s, you had New York, you had Los Angeles. Now you've got New York, Miami, Los Angeles, Atlanta. There's other places. Even, I mean, you can't even talk about the South. You know, you can't talk about it because that was the hub. There's so many cities. You got so many people, right? So for us in this country, you want to get into the music industry, you want to go and see a record label, you go to London. That's it. Doesn't matter where you live in the country, you go to London. But some of the guys ended up living in London because that's where the record companies were. We didn't do that. And we benefited from not doing that,
Yeah.
so to speak. Because if we'd have done that, maybe, who knows? Because that's where all the major TV stations were, blah, 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 you know. So
Yeah,
that
there's no
benefit.
guarantee. At that point, you start getting into that world, you start to get the ego, and you're young kids. You don't know. One or a couple of you guys are
Listen,
dangerous, something, you know, that's it.
nah, we were never going to get that way because we also kept each other in check. With two sets of brothers and me, we kept each other in check.
That's good.
But we also, going to school for me, brought me back down to earth. When I used to do interviews, and you're walking to school, I say, yeah, of course I walk to school. It's only down the road. I've always walked to school. What's any different now? And they go, what? No security, blah, blah, blah. It was just like, wow. And then when we had to have security, it was like, okay, so this is security. Then we had to have a police escort. It was like, whoa, okay. When we're going in the back of limos, we decided as a group not to lord it over our friends, so to speak. So we, you know, I said we didn't tell them
Yeah.
when we were releasing the single. We never told them that we used to fly to Los Angeles for the weekend and come back on the Monday to get to school. And they would see it in the paper and go, were you in such and such the weekend? Yeah. Why didn't you tell us? It, that's like, wow, that's like going to Mars. So yeah,
That's so you guys are really grounded. I mean, so what time? So you left the band. What happened to the
yeah.
rest of the band? Did they keep on without you?
Well, this was my whole thought process. I wanted the band to continue, but as it happens, my decision to step down was preempted by certain things that was going on beyond my control, which I now realize maybe it was a hasty decision, maybe it wasn't, but I have no regrets because I'm here sitting with you having a decent conversation about
Oh
my,
God, yeah.
you know, and unfortunately, Patrick, the bass player, passed away at 24. His brother is schizophrenic, so he can't have this conversation with you. The only other person that can, there's two other people, Calvin, but Calvin's the youngest, and I've never really sat down with him and asked him how it affected him, because he's your age now. Yeah,
Okay.
so before he's even left junior high, as you would call it, his career, more or less, people were saying he's over. That's not right. That's not right. We got friends coming out of high school saying they're about to start their career. They're telling us our career's over. No. Anyway, so psychologically, um, for me, Calvin has got to make decisions as an adult. Whereas Michael now, he lives in Canada with his kids.
Yeah.
So Michael and myself, we got back together, and I said to him,
Michael
look,
does a keyboard guy, right?
yeah, he does
Yeah.
keyboards.
Yeah.
So Michael and myself bonded again over something that we loved anyway. It's something we did, something we loved doing. So it wasn't nothing hard, so to speak. It
I
wasn't.
saw it in an interview. Sorry. As Michael was just saying, at the time he had 3 young kids. So
No,
was he looking for like a? Was looking for like a 32-month tour or something? To,
no, no,
you
no.
think, yeah.
It was, yeah. Well, hold on. So I've got kids. So I've said to
Yeah.
myself, well, having spoken and read, because I read a lot of books about musicians, and the
Yeah.
one thing I noticed, they all went on tour. Now I didn't want to go on tour because I had kids and I wanted to see them grow up.
Right.
So it's a decision I had to make. Either you're going to tour or you do gigs, or you're going to stay at home and watch your kids grow up. And Michael's now got kids. He started his family at 48, 50. And I said to him, look, you're going to have to take a sabbatical for a while because you're going to need to watch your kids grow up. And I can't encourage you not to be with your kids.
Right.
That would be the best thing. We can record electronically and over the internet. It's not a problem, And he's now seeing what I'm telling him, and he always calls me up and goes, "You're not wrong." Because you cannot buy that time back. I don't care how much money you got. If I speak to any of them successful artists and they've got kids, if they tell you that they missed their kids, they didn't miss their kids growing up, something's not right.
Yeah, every rock biography talks about that. The kids.
They cannot buy that time back. Don't care how much money you got. So it's.
So actually, I'm sorry. So that time, so when you did that, you actually did something else fantastic. You started a career, a different career, and not only did you just have a career, you became successful and became an owner. Like you went from the you went from the bottom again and went to the top again. And then got done with that. Now you're back doing this again. You're
Right.
a madman.
So yeah, I mean, you see, I don't. You see, you saying it, Sean, doesn't register with me. My whole ethos was, hold on a minute, and I had this conversation with Michael the other day. When I left the band at 18, I wasn't thinking about this is my only income, which it was. I wasn't thinking about I'm going to get royalties because I didn't think I was going to get any royalties. All I was thinking about was I'm going to have to earn a living somehow, somehow else. And it was when I was in LA, and you think about it, I'm in LA at 20, I had my 21st birthday. I've gone to dinner. Little did I know history was being made before my very eyes. Just like the Michael Jackson, Motown 25. I spent 2 hours with NWA, with
Wow.
Eazy-E, Dr. Dre, Mello, and Cube. I was in a meeting I was in them for 2 hours with a girl named Kim Beauty from Island Records because Island was trying to sign NWA.
Wow.
Before they signed to Interscope, I think it was. Anyway, As it happens, they signed to Ireland for the rest of the world. And I said to myself, my manager said, "You've never worked a day in your life. What do you know about work? You've never worked." And I wanted to show him that I knew it to work. So I came back to England, and I was living in Birmingham. I went to London. I worked for a dry foods company. But when I came back to Birmingham to live, I'd met my wife then. Um, I decided there's no way I'm gonna, because got we got dole, what they call the dole. The government gives you money handouts. I
Okay,
said,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
I don't want to do
Sorry to
that.
learn all these little it's English jargon.
Yeah, it is, but it's government handouts. Yeah, which is the UK
Unemployment.
unemployment benefit. That's it, like you've
Okay,
employed.
yep, yep.
Anyway, so I decided I don't want to do that, and my brother encouraged me. He said, "Look, go find a job. We'll help you out." And so I started working for a car rental company because I thought, well, if I have to go on tour, I can get out of this job easy. And then I set up my own little band, um, which was all local guys that I knew, and we were doing gigs. But at the same time, I was working, and I went from car valeter to receptionist, receptionist, then assistant manager, then manager, and then I went on to own my own car rental company.
That's crazy.
So I, my skills are transferred, so to speak, and it kind of, it wasn't a case of this is what I'm going to do. It was just a case of I'm going to just do this job to the best of my ability,
Right. Whatever you
and
do,
it's
you're
for
gonna do well.
other people to look and see if you're any good. Because if you're just a bit of a nah, you ain't got no no discipline. Because it's discipline. It's definitely discipline,
Yeah.
and to me, it's the norm. I don't, you got to earn a living. Well, there you go. Do that. If you can do that, do it. If you can drive, drive. If you
Is it
can't,
different over in England like that though? Like the way they in child star and the phrase, and these are things that make me crazy. It's a one hit wonder phrase, or
well, no, because Musical Youth wasn't a one-hit wonder here. Because we had 8 top 10 hits. Oh, sorry, top 40 hits. We had 8.
yeah.
We
So we
haven't
only have two, I think, like large we knew of over here
in the States. Yes,
in the
two.
states. That's what I'm saying. Yes.
I mean, we helped. A lot of people don't realize we helped Donna Summer back with her career with Unconditional Love, which at the time when they released it, we had a single out. So you can imagine you got Musical Youth with Unconditional Love and Donna Summer, and
Yeah.
Musical Youth soundtrack 16 going up the charts together. So we were on top of the pops 2 weeks in a row.
Wow.
So that was like overkill. But my whole philosophy was just to make sure I earned a living for my, I could pay for my house and pay my bills. And
Yeah.
you got to understand, we never had any royalties. So it was only when I set up the rental company back in 2003 that I'd set up my own rental company that I got a knock from my old manager saying, "Look, I've had a look at your royalties, and you haven't been. Have they paid you any royalties?" It was when they put the single on, The Wedding Singer,
Yep.
and
Oh, yeah.
I'd already phoned up Universal to ask about what's going on with the band stuff, and the lady at the receptionist actually said, "There's no money here." I said to her, "I didn't phone you about money. I wasn't phoning you about money because I didn't think there was any money there anyway." Little did I know, unbeknownst to me, there was 12 years of money or 18 years of money that they'd had for us, because we left the label. We weren't in the red. We were in the black. They were recouped. So we were probably one of the only artists in the 80s that they actually recouped from, you know.
Oh, the interest on that too, right? They're holding
Okay,
it for you, and they're
so hold
using
on.
you as a bank.
So here is Sean. When my manager at the time, who we fell out after we came back from LA, because I was in LA with him, and he
Yeah.
had a heart attack at 36. So he's in Cedars Sinai Hospital, and the only next of kin is me. He's white Irish, I'm black English, and it's like, wow. And I saw myself going back with this coffin like this. Anyway, as it happens, they then decided to pay us a 5-figure sum each. And I went, hold on, where's this come from? Because I was told there's no money, and all of a sudden you're paying us royalties. And that set up a whole chain of events, which meant I had to get Michael involved, and we started. And it got to a point where I just said to university, they tried to play hardball, because I said, if you've paid us this money, that means you've got to pay interest. How long's it been there? Where's it suddenly come from? Because you don't suddenly pay somebody 5-figure sum and think, oh, yeah, go away. It doesn't work like that for me, because I'm not interested in the money, because I didn't think I had any anyway. So I'm now, in spite of you, I've still got my company.
Yeah.
And because I've got my company, I want to know how long it's been there. Has it been there 1 year? Has it been there 10 years? Turns out it was there 18 years. But because of the statutes of limitations and the law, they only had to go back 6 years. So they only paid us for 6 years. They never paid us for 18.
Really?
Yeah. So when I say to you that and it was Peter Hammond who said to me, Dennis, and I was only 15, I remember this. It was about the publishing. He said, what about the publishing? Who writes the songs? I said, well, it's mainly me and Junior, because we're the oldest. So he wrote the music, I wrote the lyrics. But what he said to me was, and I'll never forget it, he said, you should put it in your own names. And I said, nah, we're a band, so we put it in everybody's name. So that's a band thing, right? So it's everybody involved. It's like Lennon and McCartney, but it doesn't say that Ringo and
George.
Who's the guitarist? George didn't get any royalties. They got royalties. They just didn't get the recognition of Lennon and McCartney, but they got royalties. And he actually said to me, Dennis, where there's a hit, there's a writ. I was like, no. Turns out it was true. It was true. It was true. But I never thought that of my own of Musical Youths record. So that set off a whole chain of events, and our relationship with Universal kind of changed, because I saw them for what they were. And again, I use them words, exploitation. Their excuse was they didn't have our address. And I'm like, well, my mom lives in the same house. My mom still lives in the same house that she signed the contracts. That's got the address of the house. So your excuse is...
How long ago was that?
This was 2003, 2004. And it got to a point where they were trying to play hardball, where they didn't want to pay any interest on the monies. And I said to their lawyer, I said, look, you know what? I'm at this point in my life, in spite of MCA or Universal and their money. So if you want to go all the way, please do, because it don't matter to me, because it's I'm at this point where I'm solvent myself. I'm not worried about you. What you're giving me is what you owe me. You're not doing me any favors. It's what you should have been doing anyway. So now that you've been caught with your proverbial pants around your ankles, if you don't want to do the deal, no problem. We'll see you in court. There we go. And from that, I remember where I was in the back of a car, and she put the phone down, and I said, what you've got to understand is, in fact, my words to her was, what you've got to understand is, you've got living people at the end of this. I've got a friend of mine who's gone to his grave thinking he was broke, and that's not good. This is the human factor of it. That's not good. And you've just ripped off kids. That's not good either. And changed the whole ethos of the whole situation. Yeah.
In fact, you have nothing to lose is always the scariest thing for any opponent anywhere.
Oh, I don't care. Who cares?
If you have nothing to lose, though, you're like, well, I can't. How do I fight that?
You can't do anything to me, because
no, they can't. That's the thing. That's the scariest thing in the world.
And then I decided, when I'd sold the record, when I'd sold the car rental company, I actually made a decision that I don't want to go and work for anybody else. I went and studied music for some reason at 37. And I did a degree, and I thought, you've been playing music long enough. You should have more than a degree. You should have. So I went and did a master's. That's what I did.
Look at you.
Yeah.
So now, what are you doing with that degree?
What did I do with my master's?
Yeah, I mean, I know you're playing out, but what else? The other you, because you do a lot of things. You are the Renaissance man.
Well, no, actually, I wanted to take them skills and pass it on to other musicians. So post 16, so if you're at university or a music college, that's the kind of thing I wanted to. But I ended up training people. That's what I ended up doing. But not in music, in working at height. So cherry pickers, ladders, mobile towers, that's what I train people in. And
That's
that's
good. I mean,
because we fit.
well,
But
you're much of a mentor. I think that's the way you are. You carry yourself.
no,
It's
I mean,
fantastic.
in about, where am I now? In about 6 years, I'm actually working up something in my mind where I can do some consultancy for artists. And it's not so much, if you think about it now, artists struggle with their mental health.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't realize, I mean, we've got lockdowns around the world. For me, I don't have a problem sitting between two rooms because from the age of 14, I spent lots of hours in rooms
Yeah.
doing nothing. I didn't have a mobile phone to help me out. I didn't have the internet to help me out. I didn't have half the things. I can't even say half. I didn't have 1/10 of the things to help me out. All I had was books and my own sanity. And I stepped away from the band for my own sanity, for my own happiness. I got saved by my Lord and Savior. That kept my sanity right. But
Yeah.
there's too many artists now because they see them shows, like I said, they want it now. They don't want to work for it. And you've got to do the work. If you want to have a career, whether you want to play in a pub or you want to go on the biggest TV shows in the world, you've got to put the work in. Because if it easy come, easy go. That's we're gonna have a generation of artists that we don't know. They're all the same. There's nothing different about them. They're all using the same art. The only difference between the 80s and now, technology, like I said, technology. So everybody's got access to the same sounds. Now it's about the song. Can't take that away. It's about the song. Don't care how good the artist is at singing. Most of these artists who come off the TV shows, they struggle and they
Right.
don't stay with the labels. That they only stay with the label for a year because they don't know what they're going to do with them. Remember, I said my first album was somebody needing guidance. Well, it's the same for them now. Where are you going to put them? Where do you put them? And also now, which I love, you now have to go out and perform live because the money's not in the recordings. Because
Yeah.
download don't earn as much as actual recordings. The money's in the live shows. That's why you got these artists doing 360 deals because they have to go out and do live gigs. So now you have to do your craft. You have to know your craft. I've known my craft and I can see somebody and coach them and whatever. But that's for the future. That's something else. I'm actually, just enjoying with my band, just enjoying, what I'm doing again. Like
Yeah.
I've
You
always
got some stuff
enjoyed it.
out there like um on iTunes. You
Yeah.
have like a couple songs. I mean, it's a couple. Like, there's like 2 albums on there, and iTunes is weird. I don't know. Have you ever noticed? You go on iTunes, there's like one band you're looking for, and it actually is the same band.
Yeah.
Like I mean, two different bands, the same name. It's like it'd be like a rock band and like a dance band, but it's the same name. And you're
Yeah.
like, what the? So anyway, I don't. The algorithms of iTunes I don't understand, but you guys have two. For musical youth, you have two things on there, like an anthology,
Yeah.
and then like some. I forgot the other album was, and then you have the. Oh, sorry, then you have the new one, newer one.
When
I
reggae.
don't. You can't. I can't talk about the dates. The dates are kind of weird on iTunes. It's good though. Your reggae covers on album.
Well, when I was at university, when I did my master's, you have to do a final project. And the final project, I decided when I sat down with the lecturer, I said to him, look, I don't want to do this and it just goes in a box. This final project I do is going to carry on and go into you know, into the commercial world. And the album I decided to call it the project When Reggae Was King. And it was the songs, not so much that inspired me because they were always there anyway. It was what made reggae in this country, and it went from 1972, and I had a time, there's a theme to it, so it harkens back to the time when artists and rock artists especially did themed albums, didn't they?
Yep.
They chose a theme. That's what we're going to write about, and that's what they went through. Now it's not the same. Now it's what's a single, what can we promote? You see where I'm coming from? So I decided we're going to stick with this theme, and I decided to do all these artists these great reggae artists. So Jimmy Cliff, Toots Hibbert, who unfortunately passed away last month, Obviously, Bob Marley songs on there, John Holt's on there, Gregory Isaacs on there, Sugar Minot's on there, and we had a great relationship with Sugar, you know. So these are the songs we grew up listening to, but were in my community. So some of them made the charts in the UK, but the majority of them made the charts in the UK between 72 and 82 when we started our career. So I decided to call this album When Reggae Was King.
Yeah.
So this time, what I didn't do was because everybody always goes, just put it up on YouTube. No, just put it up on YouTunes. And I was like, nah, I'm not going to do it that way, because I always think less is more. If somebody really wants the album, they'll find it. They will find it. And it just so happens that I held back and I only pressed up 1,000 copies of the album. So there's 1,000 CDs that we pressed up, and I've got my guy in Holland that's got some, and I've got some here. And when I went to America, I decided, oh, let me see what I can knock some doors. And a friend of mine sent it to a label, and he loved it. And I said, well, lucky for you, I haven't put it out on the digital media yet, so you've got first call on it. And I've left that with him, you know.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind, I own the masters because we paid for the album, and I know where they go. So
Nice.
now it's a case of you can't. What you're going to tell me about all this, and you know, the money or whatever, you can't tell me, because I know how to. I know what I need to do. I don't need to throw it out on the internet to cheapen it. You can come to a live gig, you can buy the album, I'll sign it for you. That's how the industry's gone now. Remember I said the industry's gone back to playing live, which is the best, because it's immediate, you know, it's immediate. And any artist who comes from the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, they would understand this. Playing live is the best because you get that instant gratification.
They still put on the best shows too. I'd rather go see a show from then.
You've still got to be able to perform, Sean. It's not a case of, you know, Leona Lewis is probably one of the biggest exports of X Factor from this country to America.
Okay.
But no disrespect to Leona, I don't want to go and see her perform live because I don't see her as a live artist. And you've got to understand, there's live artists, there's recording artists. Some of them do both very well. Beyonce does both very well. Michael Jackson does both very well. You know why Michael Jackson was a good live artist? Because when he went into Motown, he had to do it live.
Yeah.
You know, so for him going on stage was nothing. So when they were talking about, oh, he's going to struggle with the 50 shows, if Michael would have done them 50 shows, no problem at all. The only problem Michael would have had is all the paraphernalia behind it.
Right. Physically, he was dealing his own medical issues.
You see all these bands and they say reforming. They're not reforming. They're just getting together to do stuff that they did when they were younger and they fell out. Can you imagine? All these artists, their whole goal, remember I said, we never set out to be number one successful selling artists. We never set out for that. All we wanted to do was live shows. These guys were all adults, right? They decided they wanted to have hits. And when they had the hits, they couldn't stand each other. So you look at it and go, wow. You strived all that way to get to there and you fall apart. Why? Because of your egos. That's all it is, egos. That's what it is. And the good exponents of this 21st century would be, I suppose, what's his name? Mr. Martin and his band, which I don't really...
Chris Martin and Coldplay?
Coldplay. And they took their model from U2. U2, same guys, got it together, understood, boom, doesn't break. And that's how you want to be. You want to be looking back and going, yeah, we're still doing it. I don't think U2 are not. U2 are U2. If you go around them, they've got the same crew, as far as I know.
No, I think they do. They're legendary for it's like family. The crew's like family. Yeah. They're just...
And that's, to be fair, that's how it's supposed to be.
Loyalty.
And they all share. Well, the money's part of the bit. That's just part of it. But remember, in their early career, but for the support of Island Records and Chris Blackwell, they would have been off you go. You're not making any money. See you later. But there's longevity in a band. That's the key. There's a longevity in a band. You think of uh, Zayn and all them boys from One Direction. Well,
Yeah.
that's a together thing, like the Monkeys. And the only people, I mean, whilst they're earning big money, let's not get it, let's not beat around the bush. They're earning big money, but somebody's earning bigger money than them.
The manager, yeah.
Because they've been put together. It's just what it is. You know, they don't know about doing gigs in a pub. You think of all the rock bands, you know, Led Zeppelins and Ozzy and Black Sabbath and all them, they all started in pubs. So for them, it's like, they can do a gig in a pub. I can do a gig in a pub. I can also do a gig at a big 100,000 festival. Doesn't
Well,
matter to me.
that's the thing. That's actually what the show's about. It's about people that can still play, that do stuff, you know?
Yes.
It's literally the core. Like I've had some people on from independent artists, putting their own records out from Canada. They've come on, they'll sing. You know, I'm going to record a bunch of them, put them all out.
Yeah.
Like a batch. And like you know, is he still playing? Is he still doing stuff? And you're on YouTube. There's stuff out there. I'm like, people need to know this. There's still live music. There's still a
Yeah.
musician, not a rock star. And that's
No.
a huge difference. You want to grow up to be a musician or a rock star? Musician.
Well, it's something that I'll do till the rest of my days. For the rest of my days, I'll still be playing music. I had a manager try and tell me that you won't play. I said, you can't stop me from playing. You don't run the world, you know.
Yeah.
And once you understand as an artist that you have the control, you can say yes or no. You know, if you're going to sell your soul, but don't expect to get it back. If you're looking for gratification, it ain't going to happen. If you look within yourself and you're happy within yourself and you can look in the mirror and say, look, I was true to myself, you know, what, then nobody can take that away from you. You got to
No, it
be.
shows. It shows in your energy. It shows in the conversation how exuberant you are. You know, sincere. It's infectious. You know, and that's real. That's what
Yeah.
music is about to me. And that's why
Well,
I fell
yeah,
in
I
love with it.
mean, I've got my wall over here. I've got my father-in-law was a jazz musician, and he came to this country and he had to fight. And jazz, as you know, behind classical music, jazz music was the next genre that everybody went to in terms of being able to read. But jazz, you know, people who like jazz like jazz.
Yeah.
And he made me appreciate about gigging. He made me appreciate it. He did his last gig at 94. And I looked at him,
Wow.
I'm thinking, if I can play a gig at 94, I'll be, I mean, his ears had gone, but he was just playing by memory. But look, he did what he did.
I think people get that. Usually be like, well, why would you just retire? Because music is not a job. Music is
No,
what's in you. Music is what you do.
that's right.
That's why Ozzy keeps having his 15 retirement tours. He's like, I can't do this. I
My
have to
God,
sing.
he does not. Listen, people keep saying, why don't the Rolling Stones retire? Why should they?
Not about the money.
What else do they need? Listen, it's not about the money, is it now?
I don't think it's been the money since the 70s. I mean, they've
It's not
done
about the money.
okay.
Sure.
No,
Come on. Is it about the money? No.
no.
You know, go and speak to Don Henley and ask him why he does live gigs. It's not about the money. Can't
No.
be. Can't be about the money. Yeah. Go and ask Sting or any one of them successful artists. Ask Stevie Wonder why he does live gigs. It's not about the money. Stevie doesn't
No.
need to tour. You look at Beyonce. Does Beyonce need to tour? No. So why she do it? Because that's what she loves doing.
That's who she is. You don't have it. You
That's what
have
she
to do it.
does.
Yeah.
I just listened to a book on Mariah Carey. People go, you listen to Mariah Carey? She's an artist and she's a successful artist. And I wanted to
Yep.
know what made her tick, you know. And there's things coming out from that book that I'm like, wow. So it's not about the money now because she's living in a £30 million mansion and she's still not happy. What?
I
You
like to
know?
do that. I like to read a biography, even if somebody I didn't listen to earlier on. It might not be my thing. I'll go for a deep dive. I'll go back. I'll listen to all their albums, tear it
Yeah,
apart,
listen.
the production of it,
Yeah.
and it's a different world. And then you read the book and you learn more. Even if I didn't like them in the past, just
Yes.
to understand them. I respect all. I don't like hate. Hate music to me. Words don't work out. I might not like them, but
You see, but when I do the book, I try not to think, okay, I'm going to be the central person, but I also have to throw Michael in there. I might, if I can get him, might be able to get Calvin to throw his lot in there. So you've now got not just a one-eyed monster, you've got full all round. What was it like for you? We were in the same situation. What was it like for you? What was it like for you? Because whilst Mariah is a solo artist, so she has
Hmm.
to bear everything. With the band, I was able to deflect. You know, when it came to interviews, we could send two that way, and me that way. So it wasn't the brunt wasn't born on just one person. With a solo artist, it's more pressure because everything has to be done by them.
And you
That's
can
why
only share your success with yourself.
there you go.
Only you
But
know you.
yeah, but you have to put the right people around you as well. And listening to Mariah, her family didn't keep her safe.
No.
That's what she says. But her mom made her grow up, you know, and she was able to adapt and overcome. She still made it successful. She's still there doing her thing. So you say to yourself, well, it made you the person you are today. But, you know, if your family, I mean, I'm just looking at mine and I'm going, wow, I don't have them worries with my family. Like I said, my mom didn't know the music industry, so she's not gonna know anything.
Yeah.
You know, she's bringing up 7 kids of her own. She's not thinking, well, I'm gonna go on tour with him. She ain't thinking. Likewise, she never ever said, I need money from you, because she wasn't like that. She had her own money. I would make sure she had money. Mariah made sure her mom got a house. Most of the artists will make sure their families, and in fact, I started on listening to Melanie Brown from Mel B from the Spice Girls, and her dad would not move into the big house that she bought for her mom and dad. In fact, he split her mom and dad up because he wouldn't go to the house. It's funny. It's funny. It is. It's funny because that she went into a band that was put together. She's from an area. Her dad is from a country called Nevis, which is where my mom's from. And Nevis, there's only 11,000 people. So, you know, they talk about 6 degrees of separation.
Yeah. There's something about the Spice Girls, though, even though they had the poppy songs and the image, there's something about them that they were all individuals to make the sum
Well,
of them,
you say
that
that,
they
right?
weren't.
So
That's from an outsider. I think they're more to them than some of the bands that are
I'm going to
put
give you,
together.
I'm going to give you this from a marketing point of view. The fact that you just said, even though it was a band, they were individuals, that was a marketing ploy.
Oh,
It was
sure.
the same marketing ploy they used on Musical Youth. Because Musical Youth, people thought we were all brothers. We are not. We were 2 sets of brothers and me. And what they did purposely was put us all in different colors. So my color was green. And if you go back and look at it, you'll see it. My color was green, Mike was yellow, Patrick was red, Junior was black or white, and Calvin was blue. The primary colors. That's how they sold it. They said, we know you're one group, but we need to make you individuals. That's exactly what they do with the Spice
Well,
Girls.
that's pretty sweet. I didn't know that.
See? So when I saw it, I was like, that's a marketing thing.
It
Ginger.
is, but I'm saying, but
It
in
was clever.
retrospect now,
Yes.
like now though, when they talk and they've done their success, you've
Yeah.
seen them go on. They didn't just vanish. They all were very strong women.
They are
Where
strong.
some of these fans just vanish. And once again, I'm not what you call a Spice Girls fan, but
Yeah.
props where they go because of the bands that survive. It's, hard being a
Yeah.
girl band too.
Yes. But they're not a girl band, are they?
No, not
They're
none of
a
the bands. No
group.
music.
They're a group.
You're right.
So a band for me, you're playing instruments. You're playing
Fair,
instruments.
and I can't believe I said that because like most music I listen to,
Yeah.
it's gotta be instruments. Very little effects. It's gotta be, you know, I love classical. I love rock. I love soul,
Yeah.
and I love everything in R&B.
Yeah.
But it's got to be, and of course, some reggae. But to me, it's got to be real music. It's got to be. Like,
Yeah.
my family listens to music. I'm like, so who this is? I'm like, you know what? It sounds so produced to me, like so produced. When I was in school,
Yeah.
the producer came in one day and they taught at the school, and they're like, yeah, well, the guy was teaching school, and they go and edit, and they're doing. Remember the artist Pebbles back in the
Yes.
'90s?
Yeah. Yeah.
He talked with the class. He goes, she cannot sing. He would say every single song, and this is by him. He was kind of a jerk too, though. So Pebbles, you probably could sing. I don't know. He would say every single song, every word they had to edit together.
Right.
Because it was one of those acts. Now, you don't know really the truth of that whole thing, but it's
Well,
one of those
some of
groups that's just singing.
you can tell. I mean, think of Milli Vanilli.
Yeah.
You know, they won a
Yeah, they
Grammy
did.
and they never sang anything. And you
No,
go, wow, okay. But that's the industry for you. They allowed that to happen.
they did.
'Cause somebody knew. Somebody knew. And that's when
Handful
it
of
came
people.
out. It was only when they go to do the live shows that you say, really? And some of them can't perform.
No,
Just can't perform. It
a lot of
goes back
backing
to what I
tracks.
said. It goes back to what I said. You're either a recording artist or a live artist, and you can bridge the two. Sometimes you get successful recording artists. I'll give you a case in point. God rest her soul, Amy Winehouse, sing the
Yep.
rocks off anything. The trouble was she didn't do like doing live gigs because she had to go and sing about her ex-boyfriend or ex-partner or whatever. It brings
Yeah.
up all those. Adele's the same,
Yeah.
brilliant recording artist, but not somebody I'd think I need to go and see them live. No, no, no.
Well, I think music has a certain thing. I have a record collection now,
Yeah,
and I have like say 300 vinyls, much to the
yeah,
chagrin of my wife. And there's more. There'll always be more, just like guitars.
yeah,
That being said, there are only certain albums that I won't get everything on vinyl, and I'd rather have a used vinyl album from a swap meet because most of my records are used because they have feeling in them, just like my guitars are used. 'Cause,
yeah.
there's something. There's a life to it,
That's
and
right.
and then like just certain albums like nowadays I can't think of. There's very few bands nowadays I would even get a new album from. Most of it's 70s, 80s. I got this great. I just got Stevie Wonder, and then I got this great Marvin Gaye double album from Motown, the early years,
Yeah, yeah,
vinyl. It's so good. You
yeah.
know,
It's warm.
music. You
It's
know,
warm.
yeah, warm. It,
I
it
mean, you
just
said
sounds
that.
good.
When we recorded when reggae was king, I actually purposely put live. It's live drums, bass, guitar, everything's live. In fact, the one track I shot the sheriff, we recorded that live. We actually recorded it live and then
That,
put
that
it in the.
explains it because the album feels so light. Like it feels like I'm at a party. It feels like so upbeat, but it feels with the songs. It just I don't know. It's
You
good.
see, I mean, when I listen to Musical Youth, the first album, Youth of Today, even the second album, which was more hopscotch together, but there's still some the stuff that we play. The guys were playing. It's not sampled. It's
Yeah,
played live. Whatever you hear on there, everything's been played in live. Now you can use samples. I won't even. I don't even like using sampled brass now. My son plays trumpet, so he plays in the band beside me. So that's what I
yeah.
love as well. My son stands beside me on stage, and
I can tell you the only samples I like now, and I had an artist was on recently. He played is acoustic, and then he'll do a looper, and
okay,
they'll do a loop live. It's not pre-recorded. They'll do the loop.
mm,
They'll record it live, so the pressure's got to be insane. And then they
yeah,
play that part. So like they're literally editing and producing
yeah, yeah.
live while they have an acoustic guitar. That
But
that I'm okay with that because it's so real.
yeah, yeah, because that's technology. You know, you
But it's
look
used
at
for power of good, not evil.
yeah, you look at Ed Sheeran. Ed
Yeah,
goes out and does his thing because that's what Ed does, and people kind of don't get it. They don't get it. He doesn't need all the paraphernalia. He can do all these loops because that's what he did when he was busking.
yeah.
So for him, it's just a bigger busking gig, you know. But it never detracts from you. Still got to have the songs. You've still got to have the songs.
It is. And
Whether
it
it's
doesn't hurt that you have your song as the first song in the album on
yeah,
of When We're Kings. Your big song because it's so fun. You can't not have it.
we did a
I love.
re-recording.
Well, it sounds good. Though. I love you say this generation. That is the best beginning part of anything.
Wow, because I mean, it took me a long time, Sean, to work out how we can loop this, how we can use that part rather than me singing it. We sampled it, just said, right, that's what we use for the
Yeah,
live gig. That's what we use. So it's just, you know, it's
it's such a
something
timepiece. So that voice, that vocal,
you
you know what I
can't
mean?
beat
It
it.
brings you right back to the moment where you first heard that song. I can tell you,
Yeah,
I as a single mom, I was living in very poor area, very poor area, and
Yeah.
that was our thing. You guys were a jam. We were one of the bands. I mean, and that brings me right back to that moment. You know,
Well, I did. You say that I did some shows. A lot of people don't know this, but I did some shows in Slovenia, and I ended up touring with Christopher Cross.
really.
Yeah, and we become good friends, and it's really funny because it's music. I always just look at it; it's just music.
Hmm.
Uh, he used to Chris is a great guitarist. Great
He's a great
guitarist.
musician. I was laughing. The first thing I thought of was that video wasn't very helpful to him,
No,
right? And
no,
video and right, but video launched you guys, and then you walked away from it.
yeah,
So the dichotomy of the whole thing is that's where I was amused, not actually at Christopher Cross, because I've heard he's a really good guy and he
no.
is super
Chris,
talented.
he's sad, and he was managed by Irving Azoff, funny enough. But anyway, we were out in Slovenia, and watching Chris. Chris would say to me, "I can't do what you do," because I'd get up, I'd pick up the mic and go, react with the audience, and Chris would be like, "No, that's too cool." But on the same hand, I'd be standing there watching him, and as he started with "Once in Your Life," that was
Yep.
it. It just dropped. Doesn't matter what language you're in, the people just got it. Just
Oh yeah.
like you said with this generation, it's the same. And I'd never realized how impactful it was.
Yeah.
No.
It's just as powerful to hear that thing. And I always say like a few phrases I hate and it kind of inspired me to this channel is like the phrase one hit wonder. I'm like, one hit. Can you imagine having one thing you're good at? These people interview. Have you ever done one thing that anyone else knows about that's been good? You get to do something you're so successful at and it's huge. How awesome is that? And it
Well,
helps. I mean, that is like, or they'll be like, oh, the band broke up. I only like the original band. That's like being like, you get a divorce and you get remarried and be like, you know what? I only like your original marriage. I can't be friends with you now. You know, I like the original wife. Sorry.
but
You guys get to get back together. We'll be fine.
you also say that, Sean. I had to think about at 53. I'm gonna call myself Musical Youth. People go, hey, Musical Youth, you should change your name. But why? I can still be a youth. Who said I can't? I'm always going to be a youth. I can't stop that now. That's life. That's what it is. If I go out there and somebody else's music, youth, they're going to say it's a fake.
You know, I'll say when I first, you laugh. I see you hit the same. That's one of the first things I thought about. I was going to ask you. Same problem Boys to Men had.
Yeah,
The name, grew your name on some level. But then once you know them, like this when Boys to Men came on, they sang, you're like, oh, I get it. It really is just a name,
it's just
a
a
musical
name.
youth. And you watched it, the more you talk to you, and the more I've like, listen, what's this how once we were, listening to, when we were Kings, and I'm like, it's musical youth. It's what it is. It's an energy. It's
It's
bigger
just
than
an
you.
older version.
Yeah.
It's just an older version. That's all it is. That's what we would have become, so to speak.
Yep.
That's what it would have become. We had
I
no
mean,
choice.
it's more like a reggae revolution. It's more. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And
So,
I think the more people listen to you, the more they understand that it is musical youth for a reason. You know.
well, I mean, yeah. I mean, there hasn't been another Musical Youth.
No, but like I say, when you're like in America, especially, the same hits will be like, oh, especially the people that listen to radio that don't listen to just the hits. They'll be like, oh, musical youth. I know that one song,
You know the
and
one
then they'll
song.
be, and they're like, they're still called musical youth. That's ridiculous. And they haven't heard from you. They don't know what you're doing. They're going to judge your entire life. Oh,
Yeah.
my kid, excuse me. I'm sorry for drawing a lost and drive a sore throat. I said, my kid, one of my kids didn't know, and then the other one kind of, I play a lot of 80s movies. So,
Yeah.
he can get all my jokes, my dad jokes.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
so I told him the song. He's like, yeah. Because I think I know it. I don't know it. I'm like, you're not allowed to talk to me until you hear that song. Go play it on your device. He comes in my room. I'm like, I go, did you hear the song yet? No. Don't talk to me. You're not allowed to talk to me. You
Well,
learn
if you
that
watch
song,
it,
man.
you hear it on Scooby Doo
Oh
and
yeah.
The Wedding Singer.
Yep. I
You
read
know,
Garden Singer.
yeah.
It's huge. It's
Listen, like I said, Sean, I get humbled because I was out doing a show with Snoop, Great American Smokeout Festival 2 years ago, and Snoop was like, "Yeah, man, that was the jam." And then a DJ backstage, who was a big DJ on the West Coast, he introduced me to his whole family, and he said, "This is Dennis Seaton, he's from Musical Youth, and they had a hit with this and blah 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 blah." And I was like, I was looking at him thinking, "Oh my gosh!" I was surprised,
And
surprised.
I think it doesn't show like who you are and like your voice. 'Cause you think of one thing, but I mean, this album you really sing. It's a lot
Yeah,
different, you know.
thank you.
It's really good, and I think that was the difference with the other. You only did one solo album, right?
I
It's
did
hard to track
one,
it down.
yeah, well, yeah, because the label that I signed to went bust. Brouhaha.
I tried to dig a little bit. I like to do a little bit more research. I tell you, I go deep, and I
The-
listened to all the tracks, and I was like, oh, that's so they're so different. And I didn't want to be like I don't want to be like a jerk. Like I'm gonna talk to you, and I'm gonna tell you that your music is like, well, it's not that it was bad. It sounded very 80s in some of the songs. I'm like, he sings
but
good.
yeah,
You
but
sing
yeah,
good, but that's not the
yeah,
point of the
but
song, though.
thank you. But that's where I was at then, trying to
Right.
find my way.
It could have
You
been
know,
hits because it was very what was popular at the time. But
yes,
what made you you was the songs, the stylings you did in the other band, and the song you with Stevie Wonder, even though he
mm,
wrote, that's who you were. So you trying to be somebody else was awful. It's like you being like be like in a suit that's too tight or something. It just didn't look
that's
right.
right. I mean, what I needed to understand was, look, my genre is reggae, do reggae, but I was trying to not do reggae because, in respect to the band, so to speak,
Right,
because
but I think you love reggae. I think if you loved that songs, it would have
yeah,
shown differently.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you would have
I mean,
stuck with it. You would have crafted it more.
but
You
then
love something, you love it.
I wrote a lot of the songs on that album, so I was showing
Yeah,
my writing skills.
but the production, you know how that goes in songwriting, how they put it together.
Mm,
You come up with one sound, and a lot of it's the producer, especially back then. You know,
yeah, yeah,
read
yeah.
like Ted Templeman's book or all those.
Hmm.
That's a good read too. Ted Templeman's book. Um, the producers shaped everything. You know,
Yes,
Get it down.
but I was helping with the production.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
really, you have control of that too. That's very cool.
yeah. I
That's very
chose who,
cool.
you know. I've got a guy on that album, on that solo album. Um, there's a violinist called Al Shankar, and
Yep. No,
he did the music for The Last Temptation of Christ, and he played on my album. So
that's very cool.
so it's there, it's out there.
I think the music was, it sounded like pop music with your voice on it.
Yes,
I think that's how I'm trying to say it because I'm not saying it properly. It just, yeah, it just wasn't.
but as I said, I listen to it now and I go, maybe, maybe I should take the songs and give them to somebody else to record, see how they get on with it.
Or you should make them reggae
That's what I should
because they
do.
weren't bad songs. It wasn't bad songs. It didn't sound bad, and all those actually could have been hits back then. Just
Well,
doesn't sound like. Because what
I'm,
I did is I listened to Musical Youth, and then I listened to that, and then around the same time I was listening to what you're doing now.
mhm.
So it clearly like a or something it just stuck out. So that is a huge difference. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm coming at it from that angle, not like over the years getting used to it. I'm like I sat down and put them all together on a big
Mhm.
buffet. You know,
I hear what you're saying. Yeah,
those are good things though. Well, man,
that's what I
I
was
want to
having.
thank you.
I was having that discussion. Funny enough, last month with my keyboard player, he said
Oh yeah,
I played him that album, and he's going, "Man, we could go back and do these as reggae." So you're just
yeah.
confirming what he said.
I
Yeah.
also think for your book, I like when and I just my whole opinion. I read a lot of books on biographies. Is I like when it's in your voice and just like maybe say you may have like a narrator, but then it's like in your voice. So it's you,
Yeah.
and then maybe you could have someone else writing in their sound. It's nice to have that person's voice and not like co-written with somebody, but then
Now
have the
you say
co-writer
that.
actually write the facts of it. The bullet, you know what I'm
Yes,
saying?
you say that when I listen to because I drive a lot and I listen to the books. Mariah Carey, she narrated hers, and then Melanie B, she found an actress because she's dyslexic, so she couldn't. She comes in at the beginning. She says, "I'm dyslexic," so we searched for somebody who sounded like me who could put it off, and you get the idea. I get the
Yeah,
idea. These are audio books, so it's like Kevin Hart does he narrates his books. That makes sense because
yeah.
nobody else could put the story across better than him. So it's giving me ideas. That's for sure. Sure.
I do think yeah, it has to have your stamp on it. I mean, you obviously have co-writers, like you said, you co-produced and use that,
Mm,
but it's got to be you. The book's got to be
yeah.
you, not just you trying to sound like a book that's out now.
No, no,
You
no.
know, it's got to be the Dennis, musical youth story of
That'd
like
be
literally
brilliant.
what I just talked to. I can't believe the stuff I've heard. Like it was just such a fun discussion with you tonight, man. This has been so much fun.
Yeah.
It's like a gift. Thank you.
Well, no problem.
It's been great, and there's so much great information out there that people just don't know. Hopefully
Yeah.
this will get some views and get it out there as it grows. But you got a story to tell.
Nice one. Thank you very
And you got
much.
more and you got more stories to make too. Because let's actually wrap on that. What's the plans? Because you got COVID, so everyone's kind of locked down right now.
Well, lockdown caused me not to be able to. We were supposed to be doing some shows. I was supposed to be doing some shows out on the West Coast. Um, lost lost 80s shows,
Mhm.
and that got cancelled. But I'm on the shows next year now. Hopefully, the tour's in August. I haven't been able to do, and I'm actually going to start knocking some doors. The East Coast, because West Coast is all right, but I haven't been able to do any shows
You
down
come
on the
around
East
New
Coast.
England. You come around New England. You and I are going to dinner.
No problem. So
I'm in New England, so I'd love to see you.
I've actually put together. I've got a little pickup band out on the West Coast,
Yeah.
and I'll take my keyboard player and we go and do some shows. So that's hopefully the next few years. I'll be doing more shows on the American side, and eventually get the whole band out there. But because of the cost of the visas,
Mhm.
we're talking something like it's 24. It cost us
That's
$24,000
the thing.
to bring the band out, and I've got to weigh that up against the
And then
tours.
people complain about a T-shirt that costs $40. You're like, dude, that was just last time I was at a show, and someone was complaining about a $40 T-shirt. I'm like, do you know how much it costs to bring an 8-piece band, pay for a tour bus? They're like $1,500 a day. Like, do you know how much it costs to do this? And you're complaining about a
Yeah,
T-shirt to help keep your favorite band going?
see, I
I'm like,
understand all that.
I'll take two of them.
Yeah, I
So
understand all that.
I hear you. I think a pickup
And to
band is
be
actually a
fair,
smart thing for you.
them shows that we did, that kind of whetted my appetite more because the appreciation was there. I mean, I got the first show I did, San Diego. I'm sure it was San Diego with the Lost 80s. I come backstage and the Flock of Seagulls and all them guys
Yeah,
were clapping, and I'm like, whoa,
awesome.
whoa.
But they're all
But
musicians. I hate the fact that it feels like it's like a negative nostalgia tour. It's really good. I mean, I went to
no,
see
it's fun.
I
It's
saw
fun.
B-52s in Berlin
Yeah,
and OMD. I could
it's
not believe how OMD were just bouncing on a stage. I wish I had the energy. They're way older than me,
my
and the
a
music
good
was
friend of
so
mine.
tight.
Yeah, my a good friend of mine is their roadie.
Okay, so yeah, I mean they are just, and they're still cutting out songs. Their albums. I had to go
Yeah,
back and listen to more of their stuff now. I'm like,
yeah.
they're insane. And I
That's
actually think some
right.
of these
So,
bands are getting better. So I saw The Alarm in a club recently. Once again, another
mhm,
band of Average Generation. Same thing,
mhm.
just rocking it out, man.
It's how can I say? Listen. We're a long time dead, so you might as well do as much as you can
Yeah,
now, and you might as well enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, don't do it. That's my philosophy. If you don't enjoy it, don't do it. And when I tell people I'm going on the road to do shows and I only have to do 15 minutes a night, they look at me like, "What? 15 minutes? No. Yeah, that's what I have to do, 15 minutes." And I get all the adulation, boom, boom, and I get paid. It's not about the money though. If it was about the money, sometimes I wouldn't do it. It's never about the money. It's about
but
doing
the
the
money
gig,
doesn't. If you're doing what you like, money doesn't suck.
doing the gig. It's only time for me. It's just time. You can't buy time. You can't hold time, but you can capture time in your recordings, which is what we do. Capture time in recordings.